Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Den of Cin with Devin and James. I'm very excited about tonight's episode that we are recording tonight. Every now and then we occasionally have a guest on, and today we have our recurring guest, one of our favorites, both in podcast and in life. But before we get into our special guest, Devin, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing okay. To quote David Byrne, same as it ever was.
There you go. Yeah, I feel that. I can sympathize with that in the current moment.
Although I will say, same as it ever was around here. We started this podcast in 2020, and it feels like every few episodes, the entire world fucking changes. But
yeah, that's right.
And that has happened again. But
yes.
That is not why we are here.
No. I mean, nobody's listening to this podcast and then there's enough of it in the world too right now. By much more educated and smarter folks than myself talking about the subject. But obviously it's a scary time in the world. It seems to be ever more scary than the previous day. But let's distract ourselves with some of that. Let's be foolish enough, bury our heads in the sand, and talk about some movies tonight. Devin, do you want to introduce our special guest tonight?
I would love to introduce our special guest tonight. Back with us for a third time, we've got Casey O'Connor. How you doing, Casey?
Hello, everyone. Hello, guys.
And we invited Casey on for this episode because it's a tribute, yet another tribute that was not part of our original plan in the sequence of episodes, but 2022 continues to be a bitch. So tonight we are going to be taking on the career of Ivan Reitman, or as many of them as we can fit in. There's a very significant list of films with his name on it, whether you are including the films that he directed or wrote or produced or all of the above. But we're going to get to at least as many of the ones that we love. You know, Casey is another, I guess we were all born in the 70s, but let's face it, we're all 80s babies.
Yeah.
And Ivan Reitman was definitely a man of the 80s. He was just a cultural icon at the time with his output of films, which I'm not even going to go over the short list right now because I'm sure everybody listening to this knows exactly which movies we're talking about.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that Ivan Reitman is somebody that you don't have to be a cinephile to be aware of who he was and, his legacy in film. Just like most people in film, I think we'll be front-loading the conversation a lot with his early films. Like his earlier work sort of is, mainly what we'll be talking about, which I don't know if that's fair, but that's just the way it goes.
It really is, but it's all good. And even the ones that I've not seen, I've heard great things about. And of course, Ivan Reitman, he's a legacy now. He's got two kids who are currently very active in the business, and we'll certainly touch on them as well. Jason Reitman and Catherine Reitman. Jason Reitman, we will be bringing up, I'm sure, in a very specific way about at least one very specific movie. But Catherine Reitman, I'd just like to give a shout out because my wife and I, over the last year, became fans of her. I guess it's a Canadian show. Here it's on Netflix, but Working Moms. It's actually a lot of fun if you guys haven't seen it.
I haven't not.
I've heard of it, but I've yet to see it.
It's really funny. It kind of starts off as one type of show, and then by season 3, it's kind of, I won't say gone off the rails because that sounds like it's lost some sort of creative edge. It's just become kind of a different beast. And she's fantastic in it. I believe she's the showrunner. She's also the lead. But
and let's make mention that we're sticking to films that he's directed because he's been involved in all sorts of aspects, but he's very prolific as a producer specifically as well. And we can maybe touch upon some of the things he's produced, but we're mainly talking about.
I wouldn't mind talking, like, I don't want to get into like every film that he's produced, but just touching on like some of the stuff he did produce is kind of interesting, like early on with Cronenberg and whatnot. So
yeah, I mean that's the thing is he's got some films of his that are personal favorites of mine that he's produced that it'd be a lot of work to go into everything that he's ever produced.
But our public will not forgive us if we don't get into Beethoven second.
Yeah, I would hope so.
It's crucial. How can you talk about Reitman, not talk about Beethoven 2 and Feds?
I would talk about Feds, actually. I like Feds.
Feds is entertaining, man.
and I saw the first Beethoven in the theater. That was fun. That was one that I have siblings that are a little bit younger than I am, and so that was one of the ones that I had to kind of dress down and put on a big hat so that none of my teenage friends could possibly catch me walking into the theater to see Beethoven. In fact, I think it was the theater you worked at, Casey. That
Probably true.
But just a real quick follow-up here on our last episode on Peter Bogdanovich. James, I don't know, and I probably am not even going to ask if you got a chance to see What's Up, Doc.
No, it's just hasn't fit into my schedule, but it's still on the agenda. At some point, I will get to it, and I will bring it up on a future episode of the podcast.
No problem. I was going to 86 it anyways because it just felt genuinely tacky to clip the end of one person's tribute to the next. Yeah, I think it's better that we don't go into What's Up, Doc. But for anybody that was just
and again, we have a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah. Well, would you guys mind if I called out the first film?
No,
Yeah,
absolutely
please.
not.
Because if you're like me, and I think millions of people are, we ask ourselves consistently, where can I find a cheap exploitation cannibal film starring Eugene Levy? And folks, do I have a film for you? Now,
one of
Reitman,
the stranger movies.
yes. Well, Reitman, technically, you got to start with a short film called Orientation that did really well, clipped onto I can't remember the name of it now, but it was a Dustin Hoffman, Mia Farrow movie in the 70s that apparently the studio clipped this short film on because they had such faith in it, called Orientation. And Orientation ended up getting better applause and laughs than the Dustin Hoffman, Mia Farrow movie. And then he directed a movie called Foxy Lady that I can find almost nothing about. It's as if the film doesn't exist. And in a recent interview with Mark Maron, I'm going to get the name right this time, he himself called his first film Cannibal Girls. So it seems as if maybe even Ivan Reitman is either forgetting or intentionally forgetting about this movie,
Disavowing
Foxy
it,
Lady.
yeah.
But yeah, just try looking up Foxy Lady, and you'll find a lot of other things that are not a
That
Ivan
aren't.
Reitman film.
Yes, I can imagine.
But Cannibal Girls, on the other hand, unfortunately, the Blu-ray's out of print. I'm going to have to find it, but I did find the movie on Tubi, and it's just as gruesome and wonderful as I hoped it would be.
Had you never seen it?
I had never seen Cannibal Girls until, I was aware of it. Please, I wasn't going to know about a cannibal movie starring Eugene Levy and Andrea Martin from SCTV. What I wasn't sure about was like this, with this cast and with this director, was it really what they call a Canuck exploitation for Canadian exploitation movies? And it is full on blood, guts, tits. It is an exploitation film. And Eugene's hair is truly frightening. And anyone that's seen Eugene Levy's hair in the late 70s, early 80s, you probably didn't also see his amazing Gene Shalit-like mustache that he has in Cannibal Girls.
Yeah.
I think we could do a full episode just on his mustache. So I take it by your shaming, you have
No,
seen
not at all shaming. I just I own it on a burned DVR that I got at a horror convention, and it's 10 times worse than probably a VHS recording of it. It's almost like it's so washed out you can't tell what's happening. But it's the only place I've seen it. I'm gonna actually be honest and say I thought it was a little slow, but I also was really annoyed because of the quality of the DVR that I have. First off, it's my own fault for buying a bootleg DVR version, which is probably a VHS rip to DVR. But it was an interesting. I haven't watched it since in probably 7-8 years, maybe a little bit longer. But that's funny because I would have just thought, just knowing it was Ivan Reitman, it was a horror exploitation comedy. I just would have thought that you would have been. I would have just assumed you'd seen it. And it's not a comment on you. In fact, if anything, it's first thought. You're just. I just know you as this guy, but that's interesting. But I would definitely say don't watch it on a DVR rip if you can, because
no, you don't have to, because it's on Tubi now, and it looks like Tubi has picked up whatever kind of remastered print there was for this out of print DVD or Blu-ray. I think Shout Factory did the DVD, but I believe that's also out of print. And it looks like there's special features where they interview Levy and Reitman. So at least sounds like they haven't completely disowned it as an oddity in their own careers, which is great, because if I ever was lucky enough to be able to meet Eugene Levy, I have a feeling that I would be the guy that would say, so tell me about Cannibal Girls.
I mean, Eugene Levy is a literal icon in this household, but I would probably bring it up just because it's such an interesting little corner of his career. But yeah, I mean, it's an oddity. It's funny because it's not that much of a stretch of some of his next films. It's not that far off. I mean, he was definitely kind of playing in the same sandbox, but you just think of him as Twins and Kindergarten Cop, and he's like a big Hollywood guy. You just don't. It's just a weird little oddity in his filmography, but it's cool. Like I said, it's right up my alley. It's definitely worth viewing. I'm sure if you want to celebrate the man's filmography, celebrate his career, it's definitely, you can do worse than Cannibal Girls, I'm sure.
Have you seen it, Casey?
I have not. I got to get on this. I usually keep up on like Shout Factory and stuff too, but like I'll be damned if I've heard of this movie until now.
Shout Factory might have released it on like they were doing 2-packs for a while where you get the 2 movies on one, so it might have been one of those. I remember seeing they used the original 70s poster art for it,
yeah,
but I don't remember if it was a single release or if it was like they were doing that where they were buying up cheaper titles and putting them out on 2 movies on one disc or whatever. So
no, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. So
yeah, I mean, for fans of Levy and Martin and Reitman, it is a must see. Don't watch it with the kids around. It's blood and guts within 30 seconds of the movie starting. I did find one kind of fun little fact about it. And I believe that I don't know if Shout Factory did this, but they did put this version of it on the out of print Blu-ray. I guess in the UK, where it was declared a video nasty, when it played theatrically in the UK, they actually publicized it as having like a terror warning or something like that. So there was like a klaxon siren every time something scary or gory was about to happen. So while you're in the middle of watching this movie, all of a sudden it starts going bap, 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 bap to let you know to like avert your eyes.
That sounds like a real pleasant film going experience.
Right?
That sounds funny for about like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
exactly. And if you're watching it at the drive-in, you just think that little speaker that connects to your car is shorting a wire.
Yeah, or someone's invading us. Like,
yeah,
right.
Guess it depends on your worldview.
Oh, and just like to let you know,
wow.
when the moment is over, they gave you a doorbell sound alerting you that it's okay to look back as well.
Oh, that's nice of them.
I was gonna say that at least they thought of that. At least they were considerate enough to let you know when to look back. Although I assume, like, if you're going to a movie called Cannibal Girls, do you really need the klaxon alarm? Is that like weren't you aware what you were looking for when you bought the ticket?
You mean this isn't Beethoven 2?
I could have used an alarm on that one. Every time there's going to be a really nasty dog drool scene, I would have liked to have.
I was going to say,
I can handle blood and guts. Dog drool, it's a little bit of a different thing.
I'm with you, buddy.
But
do you have like PTSD from Turner and Hooch or what?
I was going to say,
I don't even mention that movie.
Neither does Tom Hanks.
Still better than K-9, though.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah.
Anything's better without Jim Belushi, so it's fine.
Yeah, people have stories. A lot of stories.
Yeah, we're not gonna get in trouble with that one, but
yeah,
I've heard things. Speaking of Belushi, though, to sidetrack right off here into something that he produced instead of directed, but just to give a shout out, I do think that it's worthy of mentioning that he kind of earned his spotlight by producing and co-writing Animal House with Harold Ramis. So I don't know that we necessarily need to go into it too far. I will fully confess I have never really liked the movie, but I get it.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm exactly like you. I get it, but it's not on my list of my favorite comedies. There's some great moments in it. It was very groundbreaking at the time, for its lewd. Like, it was very, cutting edge, very lewd. But, do I consider the greatest comedy ever made? No, I personally don't. I think it's actually a little tedious. But my favorite thing in the whole movie is just Kevin Bacon's face and the whole thing. Like, it's the most entertaining thing to me.
I like
Fucking
Animal
asshole
House.
in the
I don't.
face.
I can watch it when it's on. Like I don't really seek it out too much.
Same.
But like I do think it's a little bit put on a higher shelf than it needs to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I think I was like 1 year old when it came out or something, so I don't really know.
You weren't really the target demo.
Yeah, like what was happening with the world and.
Yeah, I think it's a film history movie. It's something that we're always going to be able to look at as like this was the one that helped bring down the establishment and whatever. And it did really break ground on that level. It's
you know what Animal House is like for me. It's like I think about Wayne's World. Like if you told me like in junior high or whatever that like there was a movie funnier than Wayne's World, I would have like punched you in the mouth and called you a liar. You know, do I think that way now? Not even close.
I think one thing though, and this will stay with me for the rest of my life. I don't care how old I get. Like, I don't like frats. I don't like dudes in frats. I think frat culture is obnoxious and toxic and stupid. So, like, I mean, the one that made the Revenge of the Nerds movies, I can't believe I'm using that as my sort of benchmark, but is that they were sort of like making fun of frat guys and, like, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe even as a kid, I didn't like fraternities when I, was a child. I just knew that was not some part of life I wanted.
Right.
Yeah, but I think maybe that has a part to do with it.
It has this weird sort of place in my head. People are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but I'll believe me, I have a straight line on it. I think that it kind of has the same thing going for it as Altman's MASH, in the sense that it's anti-authority, anti-establishment. The problem is it's the wrong people trying to take over the establishment. It's these misogynistic douchebags. And by the way, rest in peace, Sally Kellerman, who played Houlihan, who I do not want to call Hot Lips because what they did to her in MASH was like awful. Yeah. But the reason why I will argue that MASH is a cinematic classic is because, well, first off, it predates Animal House by several years, but also it's about all this stuff going on a war ground where, people are pushed to a completely different stress level and are doing anything they can to try to just survive the damn war with their brains intact, both literally and figuratively, as opposed to Animal House, where it's just like, oh, the dean's a dick. Like, I don't care about that kind of anti-establishment. I can agree with it on certain levels in terms of anti-establishment in general, but and the college sweatshirt is pretty funny.
The most memorable thing in the movie for me is literally that sweatshirt.
Right. So, but this is my first time coming out as a non-fan of Animal House. I've always kind of just pretended I really dug it. But I'm glad to find that. Yeah, it is fine. I'm not saying people shouldn't see it. I'm just saying it's not for me.
I get not thinking that as highly of it as most people do, because I don't.
I think that's our collective review of Animal House. It's fine.
Yeah. It's there.
Yeah, it exists. It's not as funny as the next movie on this list of, if we're going chronologically, which is
may as well at this point.
In this next movie that I just decided we'll talk about, is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of my all-time favorite comedies. Definitely a product of its time. It's definitely not. We'll say it's not PC as much as it could be, but there's so much heart and it was so influential. And I'm talking about 1979's Meatballs, sort of the kingpin of the camp comedy thing. Like,
exactly.
Really a starring role for Bill Murray. I mean, to me, it's still super funny, but it's also got, unlike a lot of the other comedies, especially the sort of those formulaic comedies that came after, like Ski School, all the way to like the late 80s, where it was still copying this formula, the sort of like lowbrow humor.
Including a number of really non-consequential Meatballs sequels.
Oh, yes. That go into like softcore porn territory, which make no sense. But yeah, Meatballs just has so much heart. And, it's just clever and it's funny. And it really shows Bill Murray at his best, sort of like this over-the-top character, but who's got a lot of sentimentality and a lot of heart. And I don't know how much of the movie is ad-libbed by Murray or how much of it was written around him and his voice, but
virtually all of it is ad-libbed. That seems to be a reoccurring theme, especially in early Reitman.
which, dude, it'll just let it to go. Like, I mean, especially if you got talent like Murray, which we'll talk about, I'm sure very soon in another film, but
all throughout, yes.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just, I love the movie. I watch it anytime I see it on. I mean, I own it, but if it's on TV anytime, I'll watch it. There's certain lines of it, like, it just doesn't matter, which I just randomly, if I hear anybody go, it doesn't matter, I'll literally just start in my head chanting that in my brain. But yeah, I love it, and I hold it as probably my second favorite Ivan Reitman movie.
Oh, that's a pretty big deal. That's high up on the list.
Yeah.
I love it too, and grew up with it. As you said, not PC. There is one pretty unforgivable assault sequence in it, which was played for laughs at the time, but it is notable that the only reason the scene stops isn't because the character comes to his senses, but rather because the owner of the camp walks in, and then Bill Murray proceeds to blame it on her.
Yes.
but
like I said, it's very un-PC. That scene
rascal
wouldn't play now.
But the stuff he does with the boy, the what is it called, the depressed camper, who's sitting by himself. Rudy, yes.
Yeah.
The relationship with Rudy is really the heart of it, and the stuff between the two of them, like the card game, which apparently was shot after the movie was already finished. That was a reshoot. They went back and shot that, and the scene where they are picking up the kids at the bus in front of the Kmart, all that stuff was shot after, because I guess some of the other gags weren't working, and the studio was just like, look, you've got Bill Murray. How come there's not more Bill Murray?
Yeah.
But that led to more Rudy. So
the scene where all the buses are lined up and Bill Murray's character goes and basically pretends he's the counselor from the rich one, and his whole spiel is so fucking funny. To this day, I laugh every time. Like, a lot of the references are kind of dated and very much of the late 70s, but it's still, I love it. And I love the Rudy kid. He's so good in it, and he's like, I don't know, there's just a lot of like heart to the movie, a heart amongst the everything with there's these two nerd characters, Spaz, and I don't remember the heavy character's name, but how do you forget Spaz? But they're like these two nerds, and they're always trying to egg each other on to meet girls and it's also it's very uncomfortable in 2022 to see some of these scenes.
Wasn't his name Stomach? Wasn't it literally something that was? I think his name was Stomach or something that clear. There was Fitz and Spaz, and I think his name was Stomach. I don't know. I
mean, why not? We'll go with it. Casey, do you have any feelings about?
Here's the thing, and this is kind of like a rare instance because usually I think the three of us agree on most stuff. I actually fucking hate Meatballs.
Really?
Whoa!
Are you telling me you were not ready for the summer and you were not ready for the sunshine?
Here's the thing, it's a movie that I always heard about as a kid, and I remember the damn song, and I remember the dude getting left out on the raft, but it's not something I watched a lot as a kid, and so I don't remember the movie, and so I saw it yesterday. I actually rented it and watched it, and I'm just like, man, there is nothing going on in this movie. It's so fucking aimless, and it's just and I love Bill Murray, man, and he's trying so hard to just make scenes happen that just aren't fucking happening.
I think you're right. He is spending a lot of time trying to make scenes happen.
I would probably have a different opinion, I think, if I grew up with it, because then I'd be like, yeah, I grew up with it, but coming at it as an adult now that hadn't seen it, that's not a good movie. At least not to me.
Well, because you're dead to me, but that's okay.
I'm sorry, man. I was expecting to have that opinion too, because like I said, I love Bill Murray, I love Ivan Reitman, but and don't get me wrong, I love weird, wacky 80s comedies, but yeah, man, for whatever reason, I was watching this last night, I'm like, this is a fucking terrible movie.
Yeah, fair enough. I am willing to give that one over to nostalgia, and I was kind of surprised it ranked so high on James's list, but at the same time, these are exactly the kind of movies that nostalgia just plays straight into them.
So the weird thing is, okay, but I was going to say, sometimes it's obviously hard to divorce yourself from nostalgia, but this wasn't a movie I grew up with. This was a movie I probably saw for the first time in my 20s.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Which I guess is still 20 years of viewing.
Yeah.
But, I still, again, the whole storyline with Rudy really, the outsider kid who gets sort of taken under the wing of the
No,
cool...
it's actually like a nice relationship with those two, but it's like
the movie around that story. I get it.
Yeah, there's just like nothing going on. It's just like these random scenes of like kids being at a camp, and you're like, okay.
I do feel like I should also point out though that theme of the cool guy takes under the nerd under his wing, and a lot of times it's either on summer vacation or whatever. Like was it the way back or the way back?
The one with Steve Carell and
yes,
Sam Rockwell. That's a great
exactly.
movie.
There's a lot of movies that sort of you can tell are very influenced by Meatballs and that dynamic, and there's something about that stupid dynamic that sort of appeals to me, even in mediocre movies. But I will say, I will give the movie this: it proved that to me, watching it, that Bill Murray, hands down, is still probably one of the wittiest and fastest. Like, knowing if you watch it, you can tell that there's a problem. Bill Murray is probably riffing a lot, and it's a very early example where he basically dominates an entire movie, and every time he's on screen, it's magnetic because he's just being Bill Murray, and that's an incredible. Not a lot of people can do that.
Reitman didn't even know he was going to show up until the first day of shooting, and
I did know. Yeah,
this is something that Murray's done for other people as well.
I'll say he was pulling that shit even back in '79.
Yeah, he's notoriously non-committal on a lot of stuff, and nobody knows if he's going to show up. And apparently, I mean, he doesn't have a manager or an agent. He has like an answering service. So if you have something you want to offer him, you have to like somehow track down the number to his answering service. And it's only specifically for movie offers. And he, by no stretch of the imagination, is calling back, I'm sure, even 90% of the people that leave messages. But that is how he gets work. Other than that, he just walks around and, directs traffic and steals people's French fries and joins pickup basketball games and whatever kind of wonderful Bill Murray-isms are going on in the world. But
and plays golf. That's probably the majority of what he does.
And plays golf. And this was the first time he did that. And apparently it was John Belushi who talked him into it. Like, so I guess Murray, even the night before filming started, was still like, oh, geez, I don't know. And somehow Belushi talked him into it. I'm sure because of the Reitman connection and the Animal House connection. Probably said, hey, do you always want to be the guy that replaced Chevy Chase, or do you want to be a movie star?
That's a great argument. I mean,
well, I guess if we are going linear, though, this does take us to the next film, which rejoins Murray and brings back Reitman's co-writer on Animal House, Harold Ramis. The two names that will probably come up the most in this conversation outside of Reitman's own. And I think everyone knows we're talking about Stripes.
My fourth favorite Ivan Reitman movie.
It's 3/4 of my third favorite, maybe.
I will say, I love the movie.
I would call it Stripe, not Stripes.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say that Stripes is two movies in one, and I much prefer the first half. With that said, it's still a comedy classic.
It's the comedic Full Metal Jacket, basically.
I was just about to say it has Full Metal Jacket syndrome.
Yeah.
But although Reitman himself has commented on that, he fully admits that the second half was weak and that he probably shouldn't have done it that way. But he felt like, and again, this is very early on in his career, he felt that an army movie should have a war in it somewhere. And they go to war with Czechoslovakia, which is personal for Reitman because Reitman grew up in Czechoslovakia. He was 5 years old when his parents smuggled him out. I guess his mother was an Auschwitz survivor, and his father was an escapee from the concentration camp and became a freedom fighter. And when he was 5 years old, they snuck him out, I guess, in the very deep, darkest bottom of a boat and made it to Canada. Obviously, thankfully, where his father became a successful businessman running like car washes and parking lots and things. But yeah, that's why they go to Czechoslovakia, which I thought was maybe not a justification for a movie on its own, but I get it on a personal level.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm not sure a lot of people know that about Reitman, that he was not born Canadian. He was actually Czechoslovakian.
Obviously this was, an early, he'd already worked with Murray. He'd worked previously in a different capacity with Raimi, but this is Raimi. That's a whole other, different dude. But this really starts a on-screen collaboration with a very successful pairing. I still watch the movie, and Harold Ramis is such an unlikely movie star. Not just because he didn't look like a movie star. Neither did Bill Murray, but Bill Murray carries himself with this over the top charisma, where Harold Ramis is he's more of like the writer than he is the actor comedian. But
exactly, Bill Murray's got so much charisma that they had to make like 4 other Murrays to act.
Yeah. But but I still think that there's something about them together where Harold Ramis is sort of a little bit of the square to Bill Murray's hipster guy, but they really have a great dynamic. And Ramis is almost like a straight man for Murray in a lot of ways, but he's got such a sly, I'm smarter than you kind of vibe. And I know it just really worked. I really, having just recently rewatched Stripes a few months ago, I'm just like, still like there's such a dynamic chemistry between them on screen that it's hard to that doesn't happen naturally. Or it doesn't happen very. It doesn't happen very often, I guess I should say. And there's just something magnetic about them as a pair. And then also I think about what Reitman was able to do with either letting both of them sort of come up with their collaboration together, or like I said, maybe a lot of ad libs. But there's just this magic when those two are on screen, and specifically paired with Reitman. So.
Absolutely.
I've always enjoyed Stripes. Again, it's kind of in the same regards of Animal House with me, maybe a little bit more so. Or a little bit, I enjoy it more, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, another one where it's like, if it's on, I'll watch it and I'll laugh. John Candy does some really great stuff in it.
He's great. Judge Reinhold too.
Judge Reinhold, the whole Death Before Disco shirt thing is fucking classic. There's a lot of good moments in it. It's really funny. It definitely does feel like 2 different movies at once that are happening. It's the boot camp in the early one, and then they go off to the war with the RV and everything in the second half. I did almost get a tattoo. I don't have a tattoo, but I was working on a show that was tattoo based. It was about tattoo artists, and I almost considered getting a tattoo of the poster of Stripes with Bill Murray doing the "I want you" point. Because I was trying to think, I go, well, if I got a tattoo, what the hell would I get a tattoo of? And I'm like, well, Bill Murray's pretty consistent. Why the hell not? so that was kind of like my idea, but it never happened, and I actually got let go from the show.
Well, it was a long time ago. So
yeah, and I have a Hot Wheels of the RV. Hot Wheels did some collection a couple years back of famous movie vehicles. Yeah. And I saw that in the store randomly one day, and I'm like, they made a toy of the RV from fucking Stripes. Yeah, I'll own that.
Yeah. As much as we're talking down on that second half, it is one really cool recreational vehicle.
Yeah, it's funny.
Did you guys know who it was originally written for? Stripes?
Who?
It was originally a Cheech and Chong movie.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, and
makes sense.
A lot of the drug bits ended up going into Judge Reinhold's character.
Yeah,
who's the big stoner of the bunch. I guess it was something really ridiculous that Cheech and Chong's managers fucked it up for them. And I'm pretty sure Cheech and Chong have gone on record since saying they didn't know that this was the deal that was being proposed. But Reitman wanted Cheech and Chong because they were very marketable at the time, and he had just worked with Murray, and Ramis was off, doing Vacation and stuff like that, Caddyshack. And I guess Cheech and Chong's manager said, no, we want a piece of the profits for this movie, and we want a certain percentage point of the profits of your next 5 films. And Reitman was like, fuck you, I'm going to go get Bill Murray and Harold Ramis and just rewrite the damn thing. Certain things do exist. And this is something worthy of noting. This is one of the few films where the extended cut really is almost a completely different film than what was released theatrically. And I don't know if you guys have seen the extended cut. first off, extended cut should never be confused with director's cut.
Yeah.
It's usually stuff that the director intentionally left out that's thrown on for a home video release because, you know, it's more extreme and more nudity. And
Yeah, it's a marketing ploy to rebuy a disc.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, of course, when they discovered all the deleted footage from Stripes and saw that they had enough to actually turn this into something, that's exactly what Columbia Pictures did when Stripes was, I think it was the second release on DVD, and the Blu-ray still has both versions. I don't know if the 4K does. The 4K was only available in like that one of those weird Columbia box sets that's like, for some reason, whoever wants to fucking buy Stripes and Gandhi in the same set.
I need those pockmarks in 4K. You're doing dirty Blu-ray.
But the extended cut has some stuff that I really like in it, and it does add more character, and there is more stuff between Ramis and Murray. There's a whole sequence where they end up, I'm not sure if it's inadvertently or on purpose, but they end up taking LSD, which Harold Ramis on LSD is worth the price of admission to anything on any given day. He does it perfectly. He's just kind of rambling and he thinks he's super smart. They end up they end up going to rest on this giant plane that of course gets taken out on a mission with them on it. And Winger wakes up and sees that Harold Ramis is in line with the soldiers about to parachute into somewhere in South America. And he goes up to, what are you doing? He's like, no, it's cool. They gave us backpacks, and like jumps off the plane. So Murray has to dive out with him and is now dealing with Harold Ramis on LSD in the jungles of South America. And it's just a lot of like, okay, so what we got to do is we got to cut down one of these trees and then we'll make a canoe. And then it's just his list of the ways they're going to save themselves, Ramis, while he's tripping. It sounds like people I've known that are tripping. He just thinks it's totally possible. This is what they're going to do with the next hour is carve a canoe. And just starts walking. You know, some of these plants are edible. Not that one. And then they somehow manage to get back to the camp. They get flown back when the real soldiers, I guess they are real soldiers, but you know what I mean. Yeah. When the soldiers that are actually meant to be there are heading back, they find the plane. And that's what goes into them being in trouble with John Larroquette as the leader of the basic training.
Gotcha.
But that scene alone, and you can watch it as a deleted scene without having to watch the extended cut, because I'm not really sure how well it flows into a movie that's already a little bit off tonally.
Yeah.
But it's a really funny scene. And you can actually kind of see a little bit of the Cheech and Chongness in it.
I will say, the whole cast, everybody, like Sergeant Holka, like everybody in the cast, exactly, Warnote, the legendary Warnotes. Everybody in the cast is phenomenal. Like all the supporting actors are great, but I still think my favorite sequence the favorite. I love the first 20 minutes of really seeing where Bill Murray is in his life, like being a taxi driver and just
exactly.
And Harold
Best line
Ramis
in the whole movie.
Teaching.
You can't leave. All the plants will die.
Exactly. Whenever Bill Murray is in a failing relationship, it's always good. It's always comedy gold. But yeah, I love that. There's just so much humor and so much character and stuff in it, and I just love it. Also, if you've never done it, a great double feature is Stripes and then Spies Like Us. That is a very cohesive, solid,
for sure.
Solid
Absolutely.
double feature.
I would see that at the New Beverly. It's probably played the New Beverly.
It probably has, yeah.
That definitely a better double feature than what I saw Spies Like Us on first run.
What was that?
I saw Spies Like Us and White Knights.
White Knights? You mean the
Baryshnikov Gregory Hines ballet?
My
Russian
mom
ballet.
loved that movie.
Yeah, so
loved it.
In 85 or whatever, people were like, hey, Spies Like Us, they go to Russia. Like, White Knights, it's a Russian ballet dancer. Like, let's do this double feature. And you're just like,
what?
It's just that simple.
I'm like 8 going, what the fuck is this movie?
Well, of course, we know the next film in 1984 asks the immortal question, who are you going to pick up the phone and dial and get a hold of when you're in trouble?
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I think your quote might be the one. Yes, I mean,
I just appreciate the attempt to not give Ray Parker Jr. any more money.
that's right. Yeah, that damn Ray Parker Jr. and all of his.
Talk about the luckiest son of a bitch in music. Holy shit.
Come on, busting makes him feel good.
Yeah, and busted all the way to the fucking bank on one song for the rest of his life.
Yeah, but dude, like, first off, I mean, he didn't invent being a one-hit wonder, but he gave us one of the greatest.
The Wikipedia definition of when it works.
Hey, only he and Paul Simon have ever had Chevy Chase in their music videos. So
that's right.
That's true. See? Speaking of Ray Parker Jr. really quick, I implore you to go watch the Pryor's Place opening sequence of his old TV show in the 80s, because Ray Parker Jr. sings the theme song, and it's literally the whole opening is Ray Parker Jr. singing this song with like kids and stuff, and there's not like one shot of Pryor anywhere to be found.
I saw it a long time ago.
Like me and my wife watched it recently, and we're just like, this is so insane. It's like Richard Pryor's show, and it's not one fucking frame of him. It's just all Ray Parker Jr. Like, that's how popular that song was. It's like the star of this show, it doesn't matter. We got Ray Parker Jr. Camera one, stay on him. Like,
and of course, Reitman directed the music video too, which probably had something to do with why. Yeah. What's your guys' first? Because I think every 80s kids has a first experience with Ghostbusters, whether it was theatrical or VHS. Mine was VHS, but what was your guys' experience?
Mine was definitely theatrical. The summer of '84 really stands out for me, and it was actually like a really formative like movie year for me. The big thing that summer was like, what am I going to go see again? Like Ghostbusters, Gremlins, or Karate Kid. Like that was summer of '84 for me. I mean, there's other stuff within there too, but like those were like the big three. When I saw Ghostbusters, like I ended up loving it, obviously, but like that first part with like the library ghost and like, that first like scare, that legitimately like scared the shit out of me.
A lot of people have that same story. Yeah.
That's why I saw it on VHS, was because my mom was convinced I wasn't going to be able to handle it. And within 2 seconds of watching it on VHS, I'm like, why didn't you take me to see this in the theater?
Well, and here's what's funny, it also kind of going into like why '84 was such like a formative year for me too, is like, because that's totally the year that like PG movies were like pretty fucking intense, and like it basically led to like PG-13 happening. Yeah, because I remember my mom went and saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom with like her friends, like opening weekend or something, but she had heard that there was like questionable stuff in it, so she didn't take me, even though I loved like Raiders of the Lost Ark more than anything. Like Indiana Jones was like my ultimate favorite thing at that point.
Yeah, me too. It was bigger than like Star Wars for me.
Yeah, and like she came back and she's just like, you can't see that movie, and I was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, how can I not see that movie? And she was just talking about like how violent and gross the stuff was, and I was just like so fucking pissed off. I was like, I don't understand. And then she didn't do that with stuff like Gremlins or Ghostbusters. Anything, it's just like I just happened to like be have that effect on me accidentally without her like kind of pre-checking on like what the content of those films were. So like that ghost scared the shit out of me. And then but for the most part, like the rest of it's hilarious, and even though there's like terror dogs and other shit in it that's horror based and stuff, I wasn't like as freaked out as I was at that first scare. So yeah, Gremlins, like summer was like seeing blown up in a microwave and getting blended and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god, like just freaking out.
I've heard Ghostbusters and Gremlins came out on the same day. I'm not sure. I mean, that's just an IMDb fact. I would have to check the
that could very well be true. Facts.
But what a crazy fucking weekend!
Yes.
Like that was probably a double feature at the drive-in somewhere.
Yeah, like that summer was just fantastic. It really sticks out for me, and Ghostbusters is a big part of that, and it still holds up, man. Like I know I didn't even watch Ghostbusters or Ghostbusters 2 like as part of like what I watched to catch up on Reitman for this, because those movies are like so embedded in me, and like I could quote those, and like I know those movies like the back of my hand. Like Ghostbusters 2 gets a lot of shit, but I mean it's nowhere near. I mean I'm not going to be that guy that's like, oh, it's better than the first. It's not, but it's enjoyable. Like there's still stuff in Ghostbusters 2 that I really like. But yeah, Ghostbusters is a classic, man. I mean, it's so many people I know is like favorite movie of all time. Just the chemistry, the mixture of like, the horror and comedy. It's just like this really well like visual effects laden like old Abbott and Costello like meets the Frankenstein or the Mummy or whatever type movie for me. And it's
you're
just
exactly
fantastic.
right. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that connection, but I think you're right. I think it does have that. And
There's still stuff from it that's fun for me to collect. Like Marshmallow Man's always like a favorite kind of character for me to collect certain stuff on, because just
Dope.
like I always love things that are contradictory, where it's like this, this thing with like this big smile on its face, but it's actually like this horrifying fucking thing that's like can kill you and stomp you and stuff. It's like collecting toys for R-rated movies. It's like, I don't know, I just find that stuff fascinating.
Which is still one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
It's the first movie I ever saw in the theater twice. Everybody in my family loved it. My mom loved it. My dad loved it. It was that year, or their Christmas season after that movie came out. It was we got a lot of Ghostbusters stuff. I said one of my favorite memories of my entire childhood is getting called to the school office in elementary school and not knowing why. Like, hey, you've got to come to the office. And I see my twin brothers in there. And I'm like, what's going on? Why are we here? And my parents pulled us out of school and we went to go see a matinee or a showing of it. And it was just the greatest day. My mom snuck in tuna fish sandwiches and Pringles chips and shit. And it was just the best day. And just getting to be taken out of school to see my favorite movie.
James, I think you just won 1984.
Yeah.
Dude, it was...
Or Judy, depending on your...
Exactly, yeah.
Depending on your take.
And that's the thing, is like, at the time, I still remember getting an issue of Fangoria off the shelf because it had stuff about the Terror Dogs and like, it showed like production drawings and like and just being mesmerized by it. And at 7 years old, almost 8 years old at that point, I was already on my way of being a horror fan. And I think it was the perfect gateway, sort of movie. It's funny and it's a family-friendly film, sort of. And, there's an element of like action and adventure element to it and a heroic element to it. But there's definitely also a horror element to it. And it's got moments where it's pretty scary. That it was just the perfect movie for me in 1984. It's everything I wanted out of a movie. So it's a movie that doesn't just rest on nostalgia to maintain its place in film history. Nostalgia is a big element in its fandom, obviously, but my son watched it for the first time when he was 5, no nostalgia, and it was his favorite movie overnight. Like, it's just one of those movies. Like, I've seen it. It's the movie I've seen more either in a theater on a big screen than any other movie. Like, I've seen it probably 6 times in the theater in one form or another. So yeah, it is what it is. It's the reason, like, it's probably the very first movie. And I loved other movies, before that as a kid, but outside of maybe Goonies, nothing rivaled it as far as like the greatest movie ever made in our eyes. So
it really is. I truly believe Reitman's masterpiece. It's the one that he'll be remembered for. Those characters, all these actors. That's what they're going to be remembered for. I mean, Bill Murray can go on and win an Oscar finally, and people will still say, Venkman when he passes away. And
the music is phenomenal. The both the score and the soundtrack are both phenomenal. It's a beautiful look. I mean, there's so much atmosphere in it and so much character in every scene, and it's really a great movie. It's a silly ghost, whatever, like, Casey so astutely pointed out. It's almost like an old, horror, like a throwback horror comedy to like the Abbott and Costello days, but it's also more than that. It's a beautifully made film, beautifully written.
It might be the pinnacle of physical effects.
Yeah, I agree with that. I could agree with that, because everything feels so authentic and real, and you're never taken out of the movie. In fact, as a kid, seeing the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man come to life, that was probably one of the most like awe-inspiring. I couldn't wrap my brain. It felt so real. So maybe not until Jurassic Park did I forget that this was special effects. You're so in the moment.
Yeah.
The scene where like Stay Puft gets like revealed, it's great because you kind of see like the head between the buildings and you're like, what the hell is that? But then like when it cuts to the full reveal where he turns that corner and he's like just walking down the New York street and everybody's just like running for their lives like in terror, but you're laughing your fucking ass off because you're just like, what in the fuck is happening? And it's so great, man. It's just like, these people you're supposed to be like horrified, but it's like the complete opposite. It's just a balance that's just so hard to nail, and they just nail it perfectly.
Well, I got to give the applause to Dan Aykroyd on that one.
I literally was just about to say,
he wrote the film. That he was right. Let me start that over. I'll get back to that in a second. But as per the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, he knew, he was savvy enough to know no actual company was going to allow their mascot to,
their brand to be like
to stand in for
the weapon of destruction.
Exactly. So he created something that, what he says is, he literally created it between the Michelin Man and the Pillsbury Doughboy. So that's how the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man became a thing. And that's actually, I mean, as simple as it is, I mean, that's brilliant thinking on his end. Speaking to the writing of the movie, Dan Aykroyd was working on the script to Ghostbusters the day he got the phone call that John Belushi died. And he was writing Ghostbusters specifically for him and Belushi. It was going to be their follow-up to the Blues Brothers. And it would have been a completely different movie. Apparently, it would have jumped right into, not only were Ghostbusters already a thing, but they were already as institutionalized as the police force or the fire station or whatever. Like Ghostbusters were just a thing taking place sometime in the future. And they were not just going to be fighting ghosts, but they were going to be jumping back and forth between time to fight ghosts, which I imagine was probably more of a like, let's correct this mistake before it becomes a ghost problem sort of idea. I don't know. As far as I know, almost nobody's read that version of the script that wasn't involved in the movie itself. But this is maybe a little morbid, but I actually think it's a little bit sweet. Slimer. Now, of course, Slimer never had a name in the movie. Slimer was named in the cartoon, and then he became kind of the what they called the fire station Dalmatian of the Ghostbusters. He became a tag along, but the original Slimer was made to be the ghost of John Belushi haunting the film. And they even called him that on the set. This is the ghost of John Belushi. He crashes parties, he wrecks hotel rooms, he's constantly shoving shit in his mouth. And so that was like their loving tribute to Belushi. And then it kind of became this goofy thing because of the cartoon, although the cartoon had a life of its own too. And that's not a slight, I'm not against Ecto Cooler. If you put an Hi-C Ecto Cooler in front of me right now, I will gladly take it.
I think I remember having a kid's book of Ghostbusters where the ghost was referred to as like the ugly little spud.
Yes.
They say that like once in the movie, but
yeah, I think Aykroyd does. Oh, he's an ugly little spud.
But
yeah,
I thought he also had a different name. I honestly thought I remember reading that he did have a different. It was a different, like the fat ghost or the hungry ghost. Like he had a name, but they
weren't going to call him John Belushi in public. Yeah,
yeah, of course not. But I'm just saying, like I think like he was referred to before the stuff came out, even like on merchandise. They call him like the fat ghost or hungry ghost or something, and then the Slimer thing came out. I will say though, sidebar, the real Ghostbusters, because the history of the name Ghostbusters is complicated. We're not going to go there. But the cartoon, the animated version, the real Ghostbusters, is a fucking phenomenal cartoon that is very underrated, has some incredible episodes, and is, something, if you are a Ghostbusters fan, you have to see the real Ghostbusters cartoon because it's fucking, every episode is worth watching.
And it was one of the greatest toy lines of all time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. As I'm sitting right next to a bunch.
I haven't watched it in years, but yeah, when it first came on, man, that was like essential viewing for me. I loved it. I didn't watch the Filmation one much at all, really.
I feel like I have to bring this up, though, every opportunity. My favorite thing in the world is that Lorenzo Music, the extraordinary voice actor, Lorenzo Music, voice of Garfield, voiced in some seasons, not all the seasons, they did change the voice cast, but Lorenzo Music played the animated version of Peter Venkman. Lorenzo Music, as I said, famous for voicing Garfield. And then in the live action version of Garfield, Bill Murray played the live action version of Garfield. So it's like they switched roles. I always found that very entertaining.
It's not the only entertaining thing about the Garfield movies.
Yes.
Well, that and the fact that Bill Murray only signed on to it because he thought one of the Coen brothers was doing it. Found out it was a different Coen.
Coen, yes.
Coen with an H.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I think it was like a Joel or an Ethan. It was just
it's Joel Coen. He's a comedy writer. I've seen him do TV shows and other stuff and other movies, but yeah, totally different Cohen.
I will say though, the ending of Zombie Land is
Yeah, that's the one.
but is it the sequel or the first one that lampoons it? It is the second one, right?
It's a comment in the first one. I haven't seen the second one.
I think it's the post-credit scene in the second one. It shows you how before, like when it starts, he's at a press junket for like Garfield 4, and it's it's pretty funny. Anyways,
you did mention the previous Ghostbusters, the Filmation Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
they're the reason why the movie Ghostbusters is almost called Ghost Breakers, which is not.
No,
I mean, I get it's such a masterful movie on so many levels, and we haven't even mentioned Rick Moranis or
no, Sigourney Weaver or just the whole. I mean, yeah,
Janine. Why couldn't I think of her real name? I just
Annie
had Annie Potts. Such a great cast. That movie would have rocked no matter what it was called, but I just can't imagine, who you're going to call Ghost Breakers. It just doesn't. It doesn't have the ring.
Terrible.
And so I think it might have even have been Reitman who said, just go ahead and call it Ghostbusters and we'll deal with it down the line. And it became a constant struggle for them. And then, of course, Filmation wanted to do a revival of their Ghostbusters now that the name was famous. And
well, they also got screwed because the whole deal was they wanted to do the animated version of it. If they did an animated version, then they went somewhere else. So they're like, well, fuck you. We own the name. So let's make because it was a live action TV show from the early 70s, late 60s. Yeah. And so they turned it into an animated version, which is actually still cool. I actually really like, it's very much in line with the other Filmation cartoons, which is very campy and silly and for kids, but it was cute. I liked it at the time. But yeah,
excuse when you have a gorilla that wears people clothes. I mean, that's...
exactly. Little like pork pie hat. I love it.
One thing I would like to bring up about Ghostbusters, and it'll probably lead into, if we go chronologically, the next movie, is cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs. Ghostbusters is a beautiful looking movie, and like makes New York look like just so awesome, and really captures, kind of like the energy of the city in the 80s. There's a lot of scenes where like the composition is, it's not so close up on the characters. It's like you get a very big sense of like their environment. They're very much like they're in the frame, but they're like, Laszlo Kovacs seems to like very, very much capture like environments around him, and he doesn't go in too tight too much. It's a very interesting look, and it's very cool looking.
Yeah, and necessary for this particular film, and especially you got to kind of go the large shot. You got to have those four characters in frame all together working as a team. It was, honest to God, I think it might have been the movie that proved to me what letterboxing was necessary in the VHS era.
Yeah,
it was the first time where I was like, there's something off here. I'm missing something. And quite frequently it was Egon that would get cut out of the picture when it was in pan and scan. It was just an atrocious pan and scan. Columbia itself was particularly bad at pan and scan versions of anything. I remember you and I having endless conversations about this when we worked at Suncoast together, how bad Columbia butchers their pan and scans.
I tried to sell people on widescreen so hard.
Yeah,
like most of
you
them
and me
just weren't
both,
having
brother.
it. Why am I trying to watch a rectangle in a square? I'm like, it's better, trust me.
The first time I brought home Jaws and Letterbox, and my grandma bought it for me. My grandma Lucas bought it for me, and I pop it in, and she goes, "Oh, son, I'm sorry, we got to take it back. It's got black bars on the top and the bottom." I'm like, "No, Grandma, this is the way it's supposed to be. Don't you see?" And I don't think I was able to explain to my grandma, but thankfully, 1 out of every 3 customers at Suncoast, I think we were successful at least getting them to give letterboxing a try. And by the time,
I felt proud when I convinced someone.
Yeah,
when I would convince someone, it's like
it was winning a fight.
Because we'd have like that little paper cutout of like the visual like comparison, and it's like, yeah, when you go to a movie, it's rectangular, it's not square like your TV. So this is why they do this.
Yeah, I give credit to Suncoast for allowing us to put up visual aids for that too, to try to sell people on something that was maybe something that they might have potentially taken a wash on from things getting returned from people who don't like it.
Yeah, totally.
But
no, I would always, if people brought it up, I'm like, just checking you want the widescreen version, and then like, movie nerds would be like, yeah, of course, and then people are like, regular people be like, no, what is that?
Yeah.
So, but it was good to regulate.
Exactly. And of course, I'm sure you guys have heard before too that at one point very early on, Eddie Murphy was supposed to play Winston.
I did hear that, which is why I guess, the role was cut back dramatically, like really, reduced.
Yeah, and Ernie Hudson has talked about his kind of love-hate relationship with this movie because it put him on the map in a way that doing the Dolomite sequel didn't somehow. And he basically got screwed out of like half of the movie, and he comes in 3/4 of the movie in, and it's just kind of the outsider Ghostbuster for the rest. And by the end, they do a good job of it's the team that really takes on Gozer. But originally, it was supposed to be Eddie Murphy that got slimed, not Bill Murray. So I mean, Winston Zedmore was supposed to be like that far into the original plot of this. So it's weird though, because it just doesn't quite make sense to me how they were like, okay, well, we didn't get Eddie Murphy, let's just cut this character short. I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it that was on any kind of a racial bias, but man, it is not a good look.
I think it was just because I think they were trying to give more of it to Bill Murray.
Frankly, yeah.
It was basically the Meatballs note of.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and let's not reduce the role of Dan Aykroyd too, who was like hot as shit at that point in time with and Murphy did make the right decision because I'm sure he would have been fantastic in that role, but he gave it up to play Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, and I can't imagine the world without his version of Axel Foley. We might have ended up with Stallone as Axel Foley, which I don't see working.
But see, I'm glad we did.
The development of Beverly Hills Cop is its own podcast.
Yes, but I will say this: to me, everything worked out perfectly because we got Ghostbusters, we got Beverly Hills Cop, and we got Cobra. Because had Stallone done Beverly Hills Cop, we wouldn't have gotten Cobra. So I can't live in a universe where that is a reality. So everything worked out perfectly as far as I'm concerned. Everything is right in the universe. Another weird sidebar, but I have this weird thing where I really want to petition Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau to put Ernie Hudson in the Star Wars universe somewhere. I don't know if you guys keep up with the Star Wars, universe currently, but Jennifer Beals recently came back as a very cool character for, very small role, but there's a lot of these 80s icons, if you watch The Mandalorian, there's, some others. But I just thought Ernie Hudson he's a cool guy. He's always gotten a shaft because of, having such a limited, always kind of being left out. That what would be cooler in the world for any actor to be both a Ghostbuster and be in Star Wars. So I don't know if anybody of any importance is listening to this podcast. I will not hold my breath, but let's make that happen. Let's get Ernie Hudson in the Star Wars universe, just for me.
I'd be happy to see that.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
And just for the sake of it, so that we don't slow down on these characters, I think we should just go ahead and skip the linear nature of this for just a moment to just go ahead and jump right into Ghostbusters 2, because why not? I think I mentioned on the podcast before. I mean, I do really enjoy Ghostbusters 2. I own it on Blu-ray. I've owned it on every format that actually it's not. I don't have it on 4K yet, but you guys don't care about that. But Ghostbusters 2 is, I think, the first time I remember walking out of the theater and realizing, oh, this isn't as good. Like, it was the first time that a sequel struck me as inferior. So that's kind of what ended up, I guess, maybe tainting my thoughts on Ghostbusters. I still enjoy it, but I very rarely watch it. And I think it all goes back to like 1989, another one of the greatest years of all time for summer blockbusters. With a lot of the, Indiana Jones was back and all that. And of course, Batman. Don't let me forget, I want to bring up Reitman's Batman too. But Ghostbusters 2, what's your guys' relationship with that one?
Okay, personally for me, I didn't think it was, at the time when it came out, I just loved it. It wasn't until I got older where I started to question some of the logistics of the film, and that it didn't have the same it didn't have the same feeling, didn't capture the same sort of feeling. But first off, I love Jackie Wilson. I love Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher. That scene with the Statue of Liberty, as dumb as it fucking is, it makes no goddamn sense. It still is very, I got emotional in that scene. But it also contains the scariest moment there's a scene in the movie where they're underground in the train station, and there's a moment where like fucking heads on like severed heads on spikes, like they're like, I'm like this scene is terrifying. And I mean, I don't know if it was Rob Bottin. I don't know who did the actual these old dead zombified severed heads, but they were phenomenal.
Steve Johnson did the first one. I'm not sure if he did the second one, but I would almost guess that he did.
Probably. Either way, it was phenomenal. It's still very scary, but is it as good? Obviously. I mean, there's some cool things in it. Vigo is cool. The whole like slime thing, which was like kind of to me, it felt shoehorned because like kids love the slime, so let's put in some slime. But I still liked it. As a kid, I was happy to have more. Like I said, I thought like because there was like a baby in it, and like there was some scary stuff with the baby. You don't want to see a baby hurt. I think as a kid, that sort of I was like, oh, they're gonna hurt a baby. I don't know, but yeah, obviously with as I've gotten older, it doesn't hit the same way. But I still liked it as a kid.
Yeah, for me, 89, was another like big formative summer for me for like all the blockbusters that came out that summer, like the ones that you mentioned. And yeah, I mean, I think I was more stoked. I mean, between this and Indiana Jones, they were definitely like the two I was most stoked for. I mean, oh God, actually no, Batman. God, yeah, just that whole summer was just phenomenal. But I remember like being entertained by it, walking out, going, yeah, it wasn't as good as the first, but like I still liked it. Bobby Brown's On Our Own, is one of my guilty pleasure like movie themed bangers of all time. Like,
see, I came around to it. I unlike Ghostbusters 2 itself, I came more around to the song and less around to the movie.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Run DMC Ghostbuster song I don't hold as in such a high regard. But no, like there's just, I thought the Vigo thing was interesting with the painting and like the effects surrounding that and like kind of his story. I actually have a huge Vigo the Carpathian banner of the painting that I had in my work office for a long time that I still have here, but I haven't put up. But it's like huge. I won it at a holiday party years ago.
Now that's awesome. I will agree. Vigo the Carpathian is
terrifying.
Yeah.
And then like the whole Peter McNichol thing and like his accent and stuff is just kind of like this odd character, and it's kind of funny. And yeah, terrifying, like that scene where it's like the ghost nanny and it's his face like coming to capture the kid. Like that's a horrifying scene, man. It's like, again, like the sequel still managed to balance good like terror and like horror elements and like the comedic elements. Not, like I said, not as well as the first, but no, it's still very entertaining to me. Like if it's on, I'll watch it. I think there's some good like lines that you could probably tell were ad-libbed. Like every time Bill Murray, like the Ghostbusters show up in the, like the raincoats or whatever, and he's like, let me guess, I can eat night at the Sizzler or whatever.
Yeah.
It's, like, it's such a goddamn dated reference, but it kills me like every fucking time.
I will say, the thing that I was angry about that it became canonized in the sequel is that I, as a kid, really wanted Egon and Janine to end up together.
Yeah.
Because they both had a very similar vibe. But the first movie clearly shows that Egon has no interest in anything that's not slime, molds, or fungus. But, they got her together with, again, the whole world should be fans of, why am I blanking on his name all of a sudden?
Rick Moranis.
I really have Rick Moranis, thank you. One of the greatest famous people ever. But anyways, I love the character. I love Rick Moranis. And it was great to see them end up together, but it's also not, I mean, he's so nerdy and nebbish and she's so kind of sarcastic. I don't know. It just bothered me. I thought that her and Spengler should have ended up together. As a kid, it actually honestly made me upset. But, it's fine. They just shoved the two, side characters together. They have glasses, so they'll be together.
Well, Janine was actually kind of what bothered me about the second one when in 1989. And there's things that I've learned about the movie since that kind of helped me understand why I felt this way as a kid. And it was the movie, at the end of the year, it was literally the last day of school and I got good grades. My parents said they'd take me out to a movie and I picked Ghostbusters 2 and I had a blast. I didn't regret a thing. It was just weird to have that feeling because I was still I'm a little younger than you guys. I was 10 years old. So it really was the first time I went to go see something that I really looked forward to and felt underwhelmed. And I think Janine was like my
setting
first
you up
hint
for
of
we're setting you up for Phantom Menace 10 years later.
Yeah, no, we'll have to do an episode maybe someday on that, although I think that ground's been pretty well fucking covered. But here's what happened between Ghostbusters 1 and 2 is the cartoon became a huge success. And the first movie really is directed at adults, but safe enough for kids, which is why they had to create the PG-13. The second one, completely the opposite. It was made for kids, and they actually had to go back and reshoot stuff because it was too sanitized. Like the stuff with the heads on the spokes, that was all reshot because Reitman was like, we've made a terrible mistake and we've completely torn the teeth out of our own beloved baby here. And so they had to go back and reshoot some things to specifically make it scarier. But that's how Slimer became a silly character. And then Janine was literally, instead of being Janine from Ghostbusters, she was Janine from the real Ghostbusters.
Yes.
And that sat really weird with me as a kid. Because I had done a pretty good job, I guess, of compartmentalizing the two. Because, you know,
I totally know what you mean.
One Egon is white hair. One Venkman looks like Dan Aykroyd, and the other Venkman looks like Bill Murray. Like, I was still always confused why, you know, they mixed those up in the real Ghostbusters. Why? What was Aykroyd's? Not his character. Ray Stantz. Ray Stantz was like the heavier one, and Venkman was the skinny, taller one, and like that's completely the opposite of Bill Murray and Dan. Like as a kid, I'm not going to say that bothered me, but I understood this is a different thing. So when I went to go see Ghostbusters 2 and saw that it was now the real Ghostbusters the movie instead of Ghostbusters 2, it felt weird to me. And Reitman even did some things like he went back, they had like in all the marketing, they had these darker costumes, and he went back and put them in their original beige costumes.
Yep.
I think because he realized I have to call back to the original movie more because this feels like an adaptation of the cartoon. And I think that's really kind of where the balance did throw me off. And I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I think
it's funny. I never thought about it, but I can totally see what you mean. Absolutely. Especially with the Janine thing. You know, in the 80s, you know, I grew up with like He-Man, where you first see He-Man and all the storybooks and all the art makes it look like fucking this dark sword and sorcery fantasy epic, very much like Conan. And then you get the cartoon and it's a fucking completely different vibe.
Yeah.
But you were able to sort of, well, the cartoon is the cartoon and everything else is like, I don't know. There was just those kind of things weren't as well thought out as they are now. Things aren't as planned and as mapped out, especially you give licenses to people and you know, the people who, the producers don't give a shit what you do with it, just as long as it makes a profit. So, you know, you have to change it from one sort of format to another. Well, this doesn't work as a cartoon, so we have to change that from the movie. You have to make it more for. So it's a product of that as well. And I can see with the popularity of the cartoon and selling the, you know, all of the merchandise and stuff. But I think that it was a smart decision to go back and add in more of the edge and stuff, because had it been more cartoonish, which there's still some element of cartoonish, even more than the first movie. But
yeah, the Statue of Liberty thing. I mean, I
Jesus.
know you love it. I'm not gonna.
I love it. I loved it as a kid because it felt epic. Because you have you know, but at the same time, even as a kid, I'm like, oh, this is kind of just like, oh, we have another giant thing instead of Stay Puft Marshmallow. Now it's the Statue of Liberty.
What I was thinking. I was like, this is just redoing the ending of the first one in a less cool way.
Yeah.
Because that thing doesn't even look like the real Statue of Liberty.
And how does that thing move? Like, it would fall apart, and it's like, it's got no, it's like, come on, man. It's still about the science. Even as a kid, the science of it bothered me. Like,
I don't think the Statue of Liberty is taller than the ocean.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think Atlantic Ocean.
I'm no physicist, or I'm no. I don't think that's right.
But it was a little too feel goody. It was a little too, you know, in the first one, the Ghostbusters are the underdogs and nobody thinks they can do it. And they actually have to be like pardoned and let out of jail to go kick some ass to save the city and the world. Whereas by the second one, it was, you know, the Jackie Wilson thing, kumbaya, everybody working together, everybody, the Ghostbusters need good vibes.
They did have to get sprung from the insane asylum that Kurt Fuller put him in.
And he is no William Atherton, by the way. If you're
No, exactly.
But he was in
William
No Holds
Atherton, who,
Barred,
by
so-
the way, resented taking the role in Ghostbusters because he said for years he would walk around and he would avoid school buses because kids would yell out of school buses, "Hey, Dickless."
Exactly.
I can't get walked down the street without getting pelted with marshmallows, damn it. Like,
So since if we're talking about 2, we talked about the cartoon, we've obviously talked about 1. Should we sort of take a break and sort of touch upon Afterlife, sort of
Absolutely. Even though Reitman produced it, I think the whole world has said their piece on the female Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I was fully on board. I would still be fully on board for a female Ghostbusters movie. I was so disappointed to find that the movie was completely indefensible. It was, in my mind,
really
it was
not
just
good.
Yeah, it was just really not good.
And it had nothing to do with the women. Like all those women have proven their
Incredibly
salt as far
talented
as
cast,
being comedians. It's
incredibly talented director too.
Yeah, it wasn't a good script.
And so, I can't defend it. It is not because it is female Ghostbusters. It is because it is a bad movie. But Ghostbusters Afterlife, I just finally saw this yesterday because I have become something of a grump. And everybody knows I write screenplays. I'm trying to get my own career off the ground. And really, there's no way to make money off of writing unless you're writing for movie stars named Spider-Man or Darth Vader. And so there's a part of me that just kind of makes it personal on a certain level to be like, I'm just not going to go see these things theatrically, and I'm not going to spend any additional money. And I'll go see something like Licorice Pizza in the theater and watch Ghostbusters Afterlife on Netflix so that I'm not adding to the box office, because I don't want to support it box office wise, but I'm not so much of a grump that I won't see it. I did pay for the rental this time because we had this coming up, but I am very curious because everybody else has talked about this movie and I haven't. So now I'm dying to know what you guys think of it many months later.
I enjoyed it. I think it definitely captured more of the feel of the original, more so than the Paul Feig one did. Do I think it was necessary? I mean, no. But I'm not mad at it. Like, it was fine. It was entertaining to watch. Do I think I would put it on as much as 1 or 2? Probably not. But that's fine because I think it's more to update what's great about the original to a newer audience. Even though I think the old one, even though they're old, I think it's still, make fans of, like you said, Jim said Julian's 5 and it was his favorite movie, right after seeing it. But no, I applaud its efforts. It came out well. But yeah, at the same time, I think I'd probably watch it maybe 2 more times in my life, if that.
Yeah, I agree with that. McKenna Grace was amazing. McKenna Grace was fantastic.
Yeah, no, everybody was good in it. It's not a bad film by any means, but it's okay, yeah, you guys are trying to recapture what's great about the original. Why don't I just watch the original?
Exactly. And
that's my old ass, but, I'm like the Gran Torino of fucking film critics.
Right. I want I want people to get off my nostalgic lawn. What do you think of it, James?
So I really enjoyed it. I think for me, first off, I understand why they did it purely on a logistic, realist. The Ghostbusters is an IP that makes a lot of money, and they're always going to want to exploit that IP and either do remakes or sequels. And I think as a launching pad for another Ghostbusters movie, you have to obviously update it and give it new characters and a new cast. Everything on paper about that movie was pissing me off, when I heard about it. It was okay, we're going to shoehorn in all the original Ghostbusters who are only doing it for the money. All of this stuff, these sentiments that you feel, and a lot of
except for Aykroyd. I do think I 100% believe Aykroyd is 100%
oh yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because he has literally the sort of, well, I have to say one thing I really enjoyed was that they sort of really made Ernie Hudson a focus. They made Winston really important in that universe, and I thought that was
set it up. I'm just gonna say fuck spoilers if you haven't seen it. I mean, we're an hour and a half into this episode and we've talked about Ghostbusters enough. I'm sure everybody's seen this. But they do set it up for Winston to be probably the primary caretaker of the Ghostbusters brand for any sequels that go forward, which I fully applaud.
So first, the number one reason I really enjoyed it is, again, the young cast was incredible. That little girl, I think she stole the movie. Every time she was on, she was just so, I don't know, she felt like a character that would exist in that universe, and at the same time being her own character and stuff, and really tying in the relationship with her and Egon. But everything about it felt authentically right, like the right decision. Like it felt like it had the heart. The fact that it was in a completely different setting, that aesthetically it was so different, but it still had that heart, or still felt like it. There's a lot of things I don't get about it. Like I don't understand, they show a terror dog god, but they don't do, like, there's some things that were a little confusing. I was sort of hoping that it would be a different threat than Gozer again, but I will say they did that really well. I'm forgetting the actress now who plays her.
The original actress, or who played Gozer in this one?
The one who played her in this one she's a very well-known actress. But
Olivia Wilde, yeah.
Olivia Wilde, thank you. And she was perfect. She looked perfect. So
yes. Gozer, by the way, originally was going to be Paul Rubens. He turned it down.
I had no idea. Really?
Yeah, I didn't want to let that one slip by since we brought up Gozer again.
I had no idea. As a huge Paul Rubens Pee-wee fan, I did not know that. But yeah, I liked the movie. I liked that they incorporated some of the original score into it in little tidbits, or even maybe changed some of it. Like it just felt real. It felt right. Like tonally, emotionally. Is it a perfect movie? No. Did it need to even exist? No, not really. But I think all the emotional beats worked. I think if you're going to shoehorn in the original cast, the way they did it was really heartfelt. The way that it pays tribute to Ramis and to Egon Spengler, while being very cheesy.
It put me off.
But it still it still warmed my heart, because the movie was almost more or less, it felt like an homage to Harold Ramis. But I don't know, I just felt like I really left it with a smile on my face. I was like, this is a very fun, cute Ghostbusters sequel, infinitely more enjoyable than the Paul Feig, which again I wanted to like too, but just it's a mess. But yeah, to me, I felt like, okay, I can live with that. That is a good Ghostbusters sequel. There's some great moments in it. There were some legitimately scary moments in it. Even though the whole last part is actually pretty, not scary, but it's intense. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love the young cast. And if they decide that, and I thought Paul Rudd was great in his role. At first I was like, why is Paul Rudd in this? But I like the role that he served in this. But I don't know. If I find out, tomorrow that they're doing Afterlife 2, I'll be fine with that. I'll be okay with that.
It made enough money, I'm sure they will. And Jason Reitman himself has said that he's sure that Vigo's out there somewhere. So we'll probably end up with a return to that. And I hope that we get something better than Ghostbusters 2, which I do think this film was better than Ghostbusters 2. My take on it, like you said, completely unnecessary. There's nothing really hateable about any of it. The Harold Ramis stuff, I really liked the inclusion of Egon as a character, like throughout the entire thing. Him as a source of light in the house. I think that was even metaphorically speaking. Yeah. He was the light in that house, in this big dark house that was illuminating for the granddaughter what the truth was. As for the CGI version, spoilers again, that stuff I'm really, really kind of iffy on. I think that this and Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars Rogue One are maybe the closest I would get to finding it acceptable, because at least these are characters that these men have played before they passed away. And it was very likely that they would have signed on to these movies if they were around to do them. I think anytime that kind of technology, about a year or two ago, there were rumors that somebody was doing a Vietnam movie and they were going to computerize James Dean into the lead role. And I was like, fuck that. James Dean terrible. Wouldn't even have been, he would have been too old to go to Vietnam if he had survived. So there's nothing that makes any sense about James Dean in Vietnam to begin with. And it's just exploitive bullshit. And I'm 100% against it. And I think that people, as a creative choice, I'm usually more likely to say, it's a creative choice. People have different ideas. That is one creative choice that I do consider morally and ethically dirtbaggy. But in the case, like I said, of this and especially this, more than Grand Moff Tarkin, I think that it hit an emotional punch. I did like, I don't know if you guys know this. Do you know who played the body of Egon Spengler before they put the face on?
Ivan Reitman?
Yeah, it was Ivan Reitman. Ivan Reitman was Egon in this. And then having watched this after Reitman passing, there was a kind of double tear moment watching that scene. My wife and I talked about it. We both kind of disliked the way that the Ghostbusters pop up in the end because it's the work of the kids that gets us to where we are. And then they come in and save the day. And it was a little bit like, oh, here comes the cavalry. I wish they had come up with something a little bit more clever, but also stylistically, I see why they didn't, and I'm overthinking it. One thing I don't think is overthinking it, though, actually two things that I don't think we're overthinking it, because Jason Reitman is a incredibly talented writer-director himself and really knows what he's doing. So I find it completely unforgivable that the world has forgotten that Stay Puft Marshmallow Man actually happened. That all the stuff in Ghostbusters 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're like, that was 20 years ago and I'm 12. It's like, yeah, well, you were born after 9/11 too, but do you know what happened there? Like,
yeah, we literally had the exact same thought. Exactly.
Maybe you wouldn't know that you were Egon Spengler's grandchild, but you, as a specific kind of nerd in this story, would at least know who Egon Spengler was.
I had a problem with that too.
And I felt like that was just like bullshit. And then they bring in Paul Rudd, who I love Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is just kind of one of those magical actors. I love him in anything except for this. I think he was horribly miscast. I think that he was thrown in as the studio wants a bankable star. So what are we going to do? Let's get Paul Rudd because everybody likes Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's basically playing the Rick Moranis character in this because he is the Keymaster. He is the not Zool. I can't remember the name of the other terror dog. There's Zool and
Vince Clortho, the Keymaster.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna like play parallels of parts, I think it should have been a nebbish, nerdy science teacher who takes the girl under his wing to teach her about the science of the ghosts and to be the nerd about the Ghostbusters and to have a crush on the mom that is maybe not reciprocated because we don't need the fucking love story in a kid's version of the Ghostbusters. There was a love story. There's a love story with what's his name? Wolf. Finn
Wolfhard.
Finn Wolfhard. Him and Lucky. That's the love story. I did not need the love story between the mother and the teacher because it was goofy and dumb and gimmicky. And yeah, Paul Rudd can go away in that movie as far as I'm concerned. I genuinely hope he is not in the sequel.
See, okay, I totally see your point, but here's my feeling on it. He is still playing a little bit of a father figure, and he's still supposed to be somewhat capable. He's still a science nerd. He's still a little uncool, or supposed to be just a little.
There's never anything uncool about Paul Rudd. He's the cool science nerd.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point is that he's still supposed to be cool enough that he's still like a respectable father figure and he's capable, and that their mom who's sad and she's her life is falling apart, kind of throw her a little bit of a bone, like that she can have a part. I don't.
Couldn't it have been much more touching if you were going to include the love story? If it wasn't just an easy what woman wouldn't want to fuck the brains out of Paul Rudd?
Yeah, but I also think a little bit of Paul Rudd's charm is his charm, and I mean, not that he isn't super handsome, but he's still enough of a regular guy that I still think that he works. And I don't know.
He's lovable. I don't necessarily. Magic. I'm not knocking him as a person or even as. No,
I know. I'm just saying, even in this role,
he just felt like a money grab to me.
He definitely was the celebrity. Part of me even thought originally was that, are they throwing us off the track of like Paul Rudd, and it because originally they weren't confirming that the other Ghostbusters were in it, other than you saw everybody, like all the actors were. Anyways, but with that all said, because it is we are already getting a little long in the tooth for this episode, I will say that Ghostbusters 2 is really where I really kind of stopped paying attention for the most part to Ivan Reitman's filmography. Even the two previous films Well, one of the two previous films, I actually have a fucking chip on my shoulder to this day about being a twin and having to hear those fucking twin jokes my whole life. But Legal Eagles, I never watched it. But anyways, I was just pointing that out to say, like, once we get back on track, I don't know how much I can contribute, because outside of maybe two of his like post 2000 films, I haven't really seen much. But
I'll get into Legal Eagles a little bit because I watched it again yesterday.
Yeah, give it, because I didn't watch it for this. I saw it once in the 80s, but
so first off, I just want to go back to Paul Rudd just for a split second.
sure.
If what you're saying about like if they cast like someone like more nerdier and stuff than like Paul Rudd, it would have been Jim Parsons, and fuck that movie. So so I'm fine with Paul Rudd in Afterlife. Legal Eagles, it's kind of weird because I think chronologically it's like the movie he did after Ghostbusters 1, right?
Yeah, he wanted to do something that could prove that he could do that he could work without the goofiness.
Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, it's definitely got comedy, but it's more of like a kind of like an old time like caper almost of like, you know, lawyers trying to solve a case and
it's stolen artwork, right?
Yeah, and
with Robert Redford, of course, and Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, it's almost a movie that seems like it would have been like huge in like the 30s, but it's also very 80s because like, you know, Daryl Hannah does like performance art and shit in it, and like but it's cool. And again, like it goes back, I want to bring up Laszlo Kovacs because again, this movie it makes New York look really good, and like he does a lot of the same type of style in this where it's like, you know, the city is very much a character, like these people are very much a part of that environment more so than like, you know, being focused on them. Like even like shots in an apartment, I was noticing, I was, wow, dude, you like it really highlights production design and like really like gives you a sense of environment. It's really cool. Not stuff you would see in like normal kind of romantic comedy lawyer movies and stuff, but
I absolutely need to revisit that. My mom is probably still in love with Robert Redford, and that's how I saw it as a kid.
I mean, Robert Redford's as charming as in this as he is in anything. Like it's very hard not to like Redford. This movie also does something kind of miraculous for me, and it's a movie that Deborah Winger is in that I don't want to like punch a hole in the wall after watching. Like I've never been able to explain why, but I can't stand Deborah Winger. Like I'm sure she's a lovely person. I don't know anything about her personally, but like all these big roles that like she was known for in like the 80s just like drove me up the fucking wall, like Terms of Endearment and like Urban Cowboy, because I just found her characters like so annoying. And I don't know why, but she's not as annoying in this as like compared to that stuff for me. And so that if anything should be a Reitman legacy, it's that, above making Ghostbusters. But Legal Eagles is fun. Like it's not amazing, but you know, if you like Redford, his charm's definitely on point there. It's kind of an interesting story because it deals with like art, and there's actually a lot of like big art pieces that are like highlighted in this movie, like in museums and stuff.
I've heard some pieces of Cary Grant's actual personal collection got into this, and that's how it ended up being Cary Grant's final screen credit, because he's credited for providing some of the artwork. Yeah,
I noticed that too when I was watching it, because it lists certain paintings provided by so-and-so, and yeah, Grant's got a credit on it, and I was like, oh, interesting. But yeah, it's like a middle of the road movie, something like you would probably catch on cable and be like, oh, what's this? And you would probably finish and be like, oh, that was entertaining.
I'm glad you saw it. I really wanted to, and I'll fully admit I'm like at a like in between checks kind of point right now, and I didn't want to spend the money to rent it because I got Afterlife instead.
It's one of those movies that like it was just always kind of like on cable, like when I was younger, and I would just kind of watch if it was on. But like I hadn't watched it in years, and so watching it yesterday, I'm like, you know, I'm not hating the movie. It's pretty entertaining, and yeah, it looks good. And the Rod Stewart song in that movie is kind of a banger too. Love Touch. Not too bad as far as 80s Stewart goes.
Yeah, I like 80s Stewart.
Yeah, but no, Legal Eagles, it's not a complete waste of time. There's some stuff that's good about it that's worth visiting. So
I'll check it out, and I'll bring it up in another episode, kind of like what James is going to do with What's Up, Doc. I really did want to revisit it. I'm really glad you did, so that it's represented here.
Yeah, it's got a lot of style, more so than one would expect from a movie of its type. And it's very 80s. It's very much like Art Deco and
I would
Yeah.
hope so, man. I mean,
yeah,
that's
but it's kind of a cool little movie. I ain't mad at it. So
well. What did you, as a non-twin, think of twins? Because this, to me, this is where James and I are completely opposite. Like he chose Meatballs. I choose Twins as my second favorite.
I actually love Twins, and I watched it in the day. It had been a minute, but that movie always still to this day makes me laugh.
I didn't rewatch it because I still remember every scene.
Yeah,
like
I didn't need to
much.
watch it today because I know that movie. I've seen that movie plenty of times, but it's worth to kind of put in perspective when it came out. Like, this is the first time that like Schwarzenegger did comedy, and I mean, let's face it, this movie fucking like internet meme at best as far as like the setup, you know. And
Good point.
but you know, you got to give Reitman like props because he made this movie that's like just a cheap fucking joke in like setup and casting, but like makes this kind of touching, really funny movie. Like when all is said and done,
it's got an incredible amount of heart. Do you know how it started? Do you know what the catalyst was?
I do not.
I don't know exactly where he was. It was something out in public. It wasn't like a premiere or anything. Reitman was out in public, and out of nowhere, Arnold Schwarzenegger comes up to him and goes, "You did Ghostbusters?" "Yeah, I could be a Ghostbuster," and walked away. And Reitman was like, "You know what? That's a movie about underdogs. So no, he can't be a Ghostbuster. But you know what he can be? Clearly funny." So
yeah.
So he came up with this idea about the twins, and Danny DeVito came along shortly. No pun intended. And it also has one of my favorite marketing campaigns. I'll have to put this up on the grams if I can be middle-aged and white enough to say that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But the original ad campaign was two posters. We all know the traditional one of Arnold and DeVito standing next to each other, and DeVito's like leaning against him. It was that same sort of look, definitely the same photo shoot, the same suits, but the DeVito one by himself says Schwarzenegger, and the Schwarzenegger one says DeVito. And I so badly want the Danny DeVito poster that says Schwarzenegger on it.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
It writes itself at that point.
Yeah, and like, like I said, for something that's such like a goddamn cheap joke, like the movie's kind of amazing, like that it's so much more than that.
It
and the
shouldn't
fact that
work.
No,
or at least it shouldn't work for 2 hours.
Even the casting Schwarzenegger is like a fuck joke onto itself. It's like, what? Schwarzenegger is like comedic role? Like, no way. And he's amazing. He's got like such good timing, and he does comedy like so well, and it just totally just evolved his career into like a whole other thing, like, once this movie came out.
I truly think if there were no twins, there never would have been a Governor Schwarzenegger, because I think he would have still been that guy from Raw Deal and Predator.
Yeah, he could have very much been like, continued like the Seagal or Van Damme route, and like,
right.
But no, this movie like totally kind of tilted the axis on his career a bit, and like, it's like, oh, he could do other shit, and he's actually really funny. And so
this movie led to Jingle All the Way. So
that's right. That is right.
Well, it also led to Kindergarten Cop, which I guess let's go ahead and make that. I mean, I love Dave, but I haven't seen Dave in forever. Let's.
Oh, it's funny. I was going to say that was the one movie I wanted to.
Okay.
What's up?
Okay.
It was the one movie I wanted to rewatch because I liked it when I saw it. I just haven't seen it in 20 years. But
I love Dave.
Dave is kind of awesome. I watched that again yesterday, and it had been a while, but like, it's a movie I've always liked. There's like those middle of the road movies that like Warner Brother was producing in like, was it 93 when it came out?
Yeah,
like,
93.
That I just enjoy. I think they're well-made films, and they just remind me of like a time in life where like, shit was simpler, and like you kind of knew what you were going to expect, like going to the theater. It's like, oh, this will be good. It's kind of like a comfort food movie for me. It's just everybody in it is good. The story's good. Like Kevin Kline is like fantastic in it.
Yeah, he was on a hot streak at this point in time too, because he does around here.
It's just one of those movies where it's kind of like a forgettable premise, but it's so well made, and everybody's so good in it, and the script is actually pretty decent, where it's a lot more memorable than it should be.
I remember a friend of mine in New York put it really well, because we were talking about it one night. We were up on the roof having a couple drinks, and this was a guy who, like, we went together to go see anything in the theater that was like John Waters re-release or Herschel Gordon Lewis. I mean, this guy was hardcore into like crazy shit. And I think I finally got around to ask him, so what is your favorite movie? And his favorite movie was Dave. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, why Dave? And he says, it's Capricorn, which is the first time I'd heard that term. And now it's one of my favorite terms. But Frank Capra, who did It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, he had a style that was very sweet and very down home, but never felt illegitimate or false or phony.
Yeah, I mean, this is
so
very much like a modern day Mr. Smith for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
and so yeah, the term Capricorn was coined to indicate the mood that Frank Capra elicits, and I think that Reitman contributed to like one of the greatest bits of Capricorn in the world.
I totally agree with that.
So yeah, Kevin Kline's great. Sigourney Weaver again is fantastic. I think it might actually be the first time. It wasn't the first time I'd seen him, but it was the first time that I like recognized who Ben Kingsley was.
It was also Ving Rhames' breakout role.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Ving Rhames.
Yeah, like Ving Rhames, like, you know, you'd see him here and there like beforehand, but this was really like the one where people really took notice of Ving Rhames.
And Charles Grodin, I thought was really funny.
Yeah,
Grodin
best
can friend.
Be wrong.
Yeah,
you can't go wrong with Grodin.
This is if there's one thing we can all mutually agree on, is that there's never enough Charles Grodin.
That's true. And rest in peace to Charles Grodin too. We let that one slip by without a tribute, but don't think we didn't notice Charles Grodin. We love you.
Yeah, he's great in this too. Like, I mean,
and Frank Langella is just so like the perfect political bad guy, at least, you know, back when that's as bad as a political bad guy got.
Exactly.
I love that, the whole story. And, you know, it was somewhat, it's obviously a fictional film, but it is sort of spun off of something that happened with Woodrow Wilson. Did you guys know that?
Nope.
No.
Woodrow Wilson in 1919, he had a stroke, and the world will never know just how laid up he was by this stroke. He was completely debilitated, paralyzed. We don't know how much of his mind was affected, but enough of his mind was affected that this was actually, I believe this was the incident that created the 25th Amendment for the president still being alive but needing to pass the power. But that nothing like that existed at the time. So for the last bit of Woodrow Wilson's administration, his wife was running the show behind the scenes. So the first lady was actually the most powerful person in the world, which that should be a movie in and of itself. If nobody's maybe it's a TNT movie somewhere or something. But yeah, that was the inspiration for Dave. And I thought that it was a great sort of leaping off point for a lighthearted comedy that really comes from something that's quite dangerous and dark. Have you guys ever heard the other casting what ifs for Dave?
I have not.
Warren Beatty, Kevin Costner, Harrison Ford, Michael J. Fox, and Nicolas Cage. I think that's like, I don't know, how many actors that was. That each one of those is a completely different movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see Nick Cage Dave. I ain't gonna lie.
Me too. Me too. And I think Michael J. Fox would have done a good job. And Ford. I'm not a huge Costner fan, and I love Warren Beatty, but if we'd seen Warren Beatty as Dave, we wouldn't have gotten Bulworth, maybe, which is maybe
different, but also good. Yeah.
Michael J. Fox made it into American president, even though he wasn't the president. So
right.
A lot of these guys got their kind of presidential movie.
Yeah, Ford, absolutely. Ford got to have his own plane with it. Yeah.
Can we do a movie or an episode where I just talk shit on Kevin Costner for 2 hours? I really don't like Kevin Costner. I really don't. Never have.
Only if I could counterbalance it with how awesome Waterworld truly is.
I would allow that. It's funny because it's not even like people like, oh, you hate Waterworld. I'm like, that's the least of his crimes in my eyes.
Yeah.
I'm still an Untouchables fan, but not really because of Costner. Like,
yeah, I was about to say he's not. That's not any of Kevin Costner's credit.
Bull Durham's one of my favorite sports films still.
Oh, it's got the worst bit of acting I've ever seen in my life. Fuck this fucking sport. Oh, God.
Fuck this fucking game. No, I know exactly the movie you're talking about.
Yeah. Ugh, terrible. Anyways, let's change the subject.
Prince of Thieves is entertaining, but no, he's not good in that shit either.
No, again, the worst thing in the movie.
Well, let's start to close up, but I do want to mention one more thing to kind of end us out on, since I just did some what ifs on Dave. This is maybe one of the ultimate cinematic what ifs of all time, and we'll close on this, and it's something that we never got to see come from Ivan Reitman. No, it's not triplets.
It's actively being worked on when he died.
Yeah, it was going into production. It was I think pre-production was already done. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm honestly far less interested without Reitman behind.
It's probably done. Yeah. I don't see those dudes doing it without him. I mean, we'll see. Who knows?
Well, I mean, they still want to try to do Lethal Weapon 5 without Donner, which I think is a mistake. That Donner would be the only reason I would see Lethal Weapon 5.
They might offer Jason. Who knows?
Yeah, Jason should do another ghost. But actually, you know what? Fuck it. Jason should stick to his own career. I think he's paid tribute to his father in a really respectable, wonderful way.
Yeah, I think his own movies are interesting enough.
But do you guys know anything about the Ivan Reitman pitch for Batman?
No,
dude. This is one of the greatest missed opportunities. This was before there was ever a Marvel universe or a DCU. This was going to be DCU with Christopher Reeve's Superman. Not that they were going to cross over yet, but that this was the time period. And ultimately, this is what ended up leading to Tim Burton's Batman. But in the late 70s, early 80s was when they first started talking about it, when Superman became a runaway success. And Tom Mankiewicz, who was kind of the genius behind the original script for Superman 1 and 2 to begin with, wrote his own take on Batman that was partly based on the comics, partly based on Adam West, like taking all of those ingredients without making it an actual like campy movie. But his casting with Reitman directing was going to be Bill Murray as Batman, David Niven as Alfred Pennyworth, William Holden as Commissioner Gordon, and David Bowie as the Joker.
I did hear that. That I did hear, yes.
Wow.
Which would have been incredible.
Yeah, I definitely would have saw that movie.
Right? And it's far enough back that I almost feel like there's an opportunity for this Batman to exist and for the Tim Burton Batman to exist, because there would have been, certainly less time than we've had between Spider-Mans before. So I would like to think that there's some sort of a possibility that this could have happened in an alternate universe and they could have gotten both.
The thing is, like, DC's been doing all these, like, they've been doing a, I don't know if it's called 78, but basically a Donner Superman style comic. They're doing Batman 89 with a, I would actually like to see them, because, obviously there's been a few other failed Darren Aronofsky's Batman, which was going to be very fucking bizarre. Obviously, Nicolas Cage as Superman. I'd like to see them do a comic book version of that, especially with like a David Bowie Joker and like visually like trying to come up with what that would look like. I don't know.
Exactly. And this would have been, cool. Keep in mind, this is like Stripes era Bill Murray. Like it would have been really interesting to see him play something slightly more serious.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Bowie is Joker, man. I can't get that out of my head now.
I know.
That's the reason I saved Bowie for last, because that's the mind blower.
Thin White Duke.
Yeah.
Before we bow out, I do want to give a shout out to one of the latter Reitman movies I started watching today. I still got to finish it, but it's actually not too bad. It's No Strings Attached with Ashton Kutcher and Natalie Portman. It was like the year where it was like this movie, and then there was the other Friends with Benefits movie with like Mila Kunis and Justin Timberlake, where it's like, oh, we're just going to be fuck buddies and it's going to be great.
In fact, I think Fuck Buddies was the name of the original script.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And Friends with Benefits is actually really good. It's kind of funny. It's probably the better of these two, but No Strings Attached, there's decent casting in it, and there's some moments that are actually like genuinely funny. And it's,
I like Portman, and I think she's got comedic timing too. I'm just not a Kutcher fan.
Yeah, but like Jake Johnson is in this, and like Mindy Kaling and like Greta Gerwig. There's all these like decent people in it that you kind of forget like we're in this movie, and it's actually like not bad. It's pretty fun for the type of movie that it is. So
I will also say I didn't get to rewatch it, but I actually really liked the movie Evolution at the time. Like I thought the cast was great. I mean, the cast is great, but I thought it was a fun little movie. I've always been meaning to rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it since I saw it in the theater.
I think I saw it on the airplane when you and I flew to New York City, James. I think
Did
that
you?
was my airplane movie, was where I finally saw Evolution. And I haven't seen it again since. Not because I didn't like it, but I just wasn't moved by it. But
yeah,
It's been a movie. But it's not bad. It was definitely like him trying to get back to like the same kind of tone
Ghostbusters.
as, like Ghostbusters for sure.
same.
yeah,
Obviously not succeeding as well, but
No.
yeah, Evolution has some moments though. It's not bad from what I remember.
and I love Duchovny, so
Exactly,
Yeah.
me too. And I mean,
But I didn't see.
Juliet more, but yeah.
But I didn't see my super ex-girlfriend or whatever, and I didn't. See
I watched
okay.
30
Nobody
minutes
saw
of it,
that.
and that was as much as I could stand.
Yeah. So later, Reitman, you kids are gonna have to discover for yourself. But No Strings Attached won't be the worst film you see in that later era. So.
good to know. Good to know. And on a producing level, I'll give a shout out to Private Parts because I just love that movie.
Yeah.
Private Parts is great, and also shout out to, he basically got Todd Phillips up and going with like producing
he
Road
did.
Trip and Old School, and so Old School is still highly rewatchable for me, man. Like I'm grateful for him for producing that.
Absolutely. I might have to revisit that one. I think there's a part of me that's a little scared to revisit Old School.
I don't know, man. I mean, it might not be as acceptable PC as now, but when it's on, dude, I'm watching it and I'm laughing. Like,
Well, it did give the world earmuffs, which I thought was
yeah,
pretty
like,
fucking great.
Vince Vaughn and Will Ferrell, especially in that movie, just are fucking gold.
It has one of my favorite comedy moments when he gets that is Old School, right? When he gets the tranquilizer dart in the neck.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Sean William Scott.
Yeah, he's like, that's crazy, man. Anyways, I love it. It's the dumbest thing
and
I've said all time.
James, and he produced Heavy Metal, the first Heavy
Yes.
Metal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Produced wise, he did Adventures Beyond the Forbidden Zone,
Yep.
one of the greatest weird sci-fi low budget 80s movies.
And he produced one of the Ilsa movies.
Did he? I feel like he would have been too.
He did Ilsa, the Tigress of Siberia, but he produced it
Okay.
under the assumed name of Julian Parnell.
Of
Just
course.
before Animal House, but after Shivers and Rabid, the films that he produced for David
With Cronenberg.
Cronenberg.
I was going to say, yes. Very
Yeah,
cool,
he
man.
was more varied as a producer, more so than he was a director, it seemed.
Interesting cat. It's too
Yeah.
bad we'll never get a chance to sit down with him because I think
Yeah.
he would have.
And
had
everybody reflecting on him since his past has been nothing but glowing, like how much of a great person he was and stuff. But I mean, besides all that, like his body of work is just pretty timeless for me. It definitely is a big part of my youth, and I'm always grateful to the films that he made, especially Ghostbusters. Like that movie,
Likewise,
like it's hard to picture a world without that movie existing.
Yeah,
And, like,
100%.
it shaped
Yeah.
me on so many levels, creatively, personality. I mean, I've got a little bit of all four of the Ghostbusters in my head at all times.
Yeah,
Could not
Nice.
agree more.
yeah.
All
Rest
right.
in peace, Ivan.
Rest in peace, Ivan. Well put. All right, guys. We'll come back soon, hopefully with something that's not a tribute, so that we can not have to be so sad this year. But
Yeah, man.
we'll see what happens.
Hopefully nobody dies between now and the next recording. So
Yeah, knock on wood. But you guys stay safe. Everybody else in the world, you guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other.
Yeah, man. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
always a pleasure when you're on, Casey. Always a fun time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.